Hello everyone and welcome back to Linux Network. Today we're taking a look at something that many Linux gamers have been waiting for, gaming on PopOS 2404 with the new Cosmic desktop. Cosmic is one of the most ambitious desktop projects we've seen in the Linux world in quite some time. Rather than building on an existing desktop environment, System76 decided to create something new from the ground up, and naturally that raises a lot of questions. One of the biggest questions is simple: how well does it handle gaming? That's exactly what we're going to find out today. Instead of focusing on synthetic benchmarks or complicated graphs, I decided to test several real games that people actually play. My goal was to see how they perform, how stable they are, and whether there are any issues that Linux gamers should know about before making the switch. So let's jump right into it. I want to start with Arc Raiders because it is one of the most popular games people have been asking me about lately. I have received quite a few questions from subscribers wondering whether Arc Raiders runs properly on PopOS 2404 Cosmic, so this seemed like the perfect place to begin. The good news is that the game runs very well. Using high graphic settings, I was generally seeing between 70 and 80 FPS throughout my gameplay session. The game felt responsive, smooth and perfectly playable. Frame times were consistent and I didn't encounter any major bugs or graphical problems during testing. Considering the visual quality of Arc Raiders, I was actually quite impressed with the results. If this game is one of the reasons you're considering trying PopOS Cosmic, then based on my experience, you should have a very good time. Next up is The Division 2. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you probably know that this is one of my favorite games. I've shown Division 2 gameplay multiple times on Linux Network, and it's a title I keep coming back to because I genuinely enjoy it. Performance here was excellent. Using high graphic settings, I was generally seeing between 130 and 140 FPS, with occasional spikes reaching into the 150 FPS range. Not only were the frame rates high, but frame time consistency was also very good, which resulted in a smooth and responsive experience. Combat felt great, aiming felt precise, and the game remained stable throughout my testing. This was easily one of the best performing games in today's lineup. Honestly, if somebody showed me this performance a few years ago and told me it was running on Linux, I probably wouldn't have believed them. Linux gaming has come a very long way. Moving on, let's talk about Ghost of Tsushima. This game is absolutely gorgeous. Even years after its original release, it remains one of the most visually impressive games available on PC. Performance was generally good. Using high graphic settings, I was seeing between 60 and 70 FPS, although there were occasional dips into the 50 FPS range. For the most part, gameplay remained smooth and enjoyable. However, I did notice one issue worth mentioning. Occasionally, certain light sources would suddenly become extremely bright for a brief moment before returning to normal. It's not a constant problem, and it never reached the point where I consider the game unplayable, but it is something I observed during testing. Aside from that lighting issue, Ghost of Tsushima ran very well and remained perfectly enjoyable from start to finish. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to thank all of the channel members. Your support helps keep Linux Network running and allows me to spend more time testing Linux distributions, benchmarking games, creating videos and sharing my experience with the community. To every single member supporting the channel, thank you very much. I genuinely appreciate your support. And if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider subscribing to the channel and ringing the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and it ensures you won't miss future Linux gaming videos, distro reviews and performance tests. Now let's continue. The next game I tested was Returnal. This one was especially interesting for me because I absolutely love science fiction. Strange planets, mysterious stories, alien environments and unexplained phenomena are exactly the kind of things that draw me into a game. Returnal delivers all of that. Performance was very solid. Using high graphic settings, I was generally seeing between 80 and 100 FPS with occasional dips into the 70 FPS range. Considering the amount of visual effects, particles and enemies that can appear on screen simultaneously, those are very respectable numbers. The game felt smooth throughout my testing and I never felt that performance was getting in the way of the experience. If you're a fan of science fiction games, Returnal is definitely worth checking out. And on PopOS Cosmic, it performed surprisingly well. For the next test, I wanted to include something from a different genre. Not every Linux gamer spends their time playing shooters, so I decided to include an action RPG as well. That game is Vikings Wolves of Midgard. Using epic graphic settings, I was seeing between 80 and 100 FPS with occasional dips into the 70 FPS range. Performance was stable, gameplay felt smooth, and I didn't encounter any major technical problem. This was one of those games where I simply installed it, launched it, and started playing without needing to troubleshoot anything. That's exactly the kind of Linux gaming experience we all want. Overall, PopOS COSMIC handled Vikings Wolves of Midgard very well. Before we wrap things up, I want to briefly mention Resident Evil 4 Remake. You won't see gameplay footage from this game in today's video, and there is a good reason for that. During my testing, the game experienced mouse-related issues on my system. More specifically, the game was unable to properly grab the mouse during gameplay, which made it unsuitable for recording a proper gameplay segment. Now, I want to be very clear here. This appears to be related specifically to the Cosmic desktop environment. I don't want viewers to come away thinking that Resident Evil Remake is broken on Linux, because that simply isn't the case. The issue appears to be Cosmic specific, and I know for a fact that the game works correctly in other Linux desktop environments. I still wanted to mention it because transparency is important when evaluating a new desktop environment. If you're planning to use Cosmic and Resident Evil 4 Remake is one of your favorite games, this is definitely something you'll want to keep in mind. Hopefully this is an issue that gets resolved as Cosmic continues to mature. So after testing all of these games, what is my overall impression of PopOS 2404 COSMIC? Honestly, I'm impressed. This is still a relatively young desktop environment, and because of that I expected to encounter far more issues than I actually did. Instead, what I found was a gaming experience that was surprisingly solid. Arc Raiders delivered between 70 and 80 FPS on high settings, The Division 2 delivered an excellent 130 to 140 FPS with spikes reaching into the 150s, Ghost of Tsushima ran between 60 and 70 FPS with occasional dips into the 50s and minor lighting issues. Returnal maintained between 80 and 100 FPS with dips into the 70s. And Vikings Wolves of Midgard also performed very well at 80 to 100 FPS with occasional drops into the 70s. The only significant problem I encountered was the mouse issue in Resident Evil 4 Remake, which appears to be related specifically to Cosmic. Other than that, my overall experience was positive. Is Cosmic perfect? No. It is ready for everyone? Maybe not quite yet. But based on what I've seen, it is already proving itself to be a capable gaming desktop, and that's exciting. As System 76 continues improving Cosmic, I expect compatibility, polish, and stability to get even better. For Linux gamers, the future looks promising. Let me know down in the comments what games you've tested on PopOS COSMIC and what your experience has been. Thank you all for watching, thank you once again to the channel members for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.